a lot of people are like, oh, well, Cenk's your uncle, so you like still work at the Young Turks or something. Like, bitch, I've been on my own since 2020. It's been 3 years. I have zero idea on anything that goes on in those inside of those facilities. I don't know why people are just like, dude, you have to address your uncle's crimes. It's like, motherfucker, everybody has an uncle that they don't agree with. You know what I mean? I'm not the first, and I will not be the last. Anytime they get into some shit, they yell at me. Like, everybody's always like, bro, Hasan, address this. I'm like, okay, sure. Both you and Anna were my favorites on TYT when you were there, and while I don't expect you to know what's going on, I do value any commentary you may have. I'm just really disappointed, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It seems like all the empathy and sense followed you out the door when you left TYT. I think that transphobia is insidious in the way that it starts taking over your mentality and your life, and I think that's what is going on probably. I'm not fully aware of what is happening, but the reality is this, right? My commentary on this issue is going to be probably identical to what I've said so far. That's part of the reason why I'm always like, ugh, we got to talk about this again. It's a situation where you can have like any kind of valid gripe, right? Or like any kind of minor criticism, but in many circumstances, allyship means you're not going to fucking like take a minute issue that's not even really an issue at all and like put it on the fucking forefront, because the people that do that are people who want to constantly weaponize any kind of like cringe. For example, a marginalized community member might be behaving as. I've talked about this a lot, where it's like cringe is not illegal, and if someone is being cringe, for example, if someone from a minority group is being cringe, for example, that doesn't mean that like this is representative of everything. It's not politics. You're just like looking at every and any kind of reason you can to get upset at people. I don't even know what Anna said or did. I've only seen like some memes like this. You got to get your leftist card revoked. What the hell? The civil rights movement did not use the same strategies as the trans movement. They didn't barricade speakers when they disagreed in a classroom for 3 hours. They persuaded through nonviolence and showing America their humanity. It's kind of funny because like this take is not all that different than what they have said in the past. If you like really listen to what TYT says all the time, like it's the classic like, well, you know, MLK was nonviolent, whereas Malcolm X was like not the best. Even though Cenk does concede and say that Cenk does concede, which by the way is ahistorical, but Cenk does concede and say that there's two sides to this coin, and that you know, without Malcolm X, MLK doesn't work on his own. You know what I mean? So he does recognize that. It is pretty funny. I don't know who the fuck got barricaded for 3 hours. I don't even know what this is. The irony is that like, yeah, all kinds of political movements that have worked against hierarchical constructs are always going to be considered violent because they're uprooting the pre-established norms, the pre-established rules of society. So ultimately, it doesn't matter, even if it's like literally baby politics. In the same way that shitting on trans people and the violence that comes along with that, or the normalization of the violence that comes along with that, is not seen as violent because it is the pre-existing construct. You can go out and dehumanize trans people. You can go out and like misgender trans people, and there's going to be debate around whether or not that is even hate speech to begin with. That in and of itself is a clear and obvious indication that as long as you are on board with the pre-existing hierarchical standards, then you're never going to be seen as quote unquote violent. So this is ahistorical, especially from that perspective, because the civil rights movement, regardless of all of the non-violent components, all of the peaceful, non-violent forms of resistance, was overall at the time, and still even to this day, seen as a violent movement. The only reason why people don't consider it a quote full-blown violent movement now is because we live in the post-civil rights movement world where some of those civil liberties that were gained, which are being shred to bits every single fucking day, are taken for granted. Like, you can't go back and be like, MLK was a bad guy, because we live in the post-MLK world. Whereas at the time, holy shit, people certainly were not fond of Martin Luther King. I think, what was it? Like, at the time of his assassination, he had a 25% approval rating. 66% of Americans disagreed with Martin Luther King. It's actually insane that this is the hill she's dying on. This is what listening to Jesse Signal does to your brain. She literally admitted to subscribing to his Substack and podcast. Oh no. Always amazing to me to see Anna and Jen keep seeing a song getting more and more popular. Instead of thinking, hey, maybe we got to shift a bit more to the left, perhaps be a little bit more loose and casual. They go to opposite of what if we were Tim Pool. I think one of those situations, one of the weirdest parts about like Twitter spats like this, if you are truly someone who doesn't want to highlight and promote more transphobia, is just eating shit sometimes. Sometimes you just gotta eat shit. You know what I mean? I do it all the fucking time. I don't know why other content creators don't recognize that like we come from a profoundly privileged perspective. So you know, there's no reason to ever, if you are truly a person who cares about these sorts of things, there's literally no reason to fucking constantly fight over this stuff. I get into it regularly as well. I get into spats regularly as well. But the only difference is that like when I get into spats, it's usually on like marginal things that people still have a tendency to turn into like gigantic issues on Twitter. You said this during the last TYT drama, they refused to take the L. Yeah. A lot of what I'm saying is the exact same as the last TYT drama. Like, there's still a gigantic subsect of Twitter that thinks I'm transphobic. You know what I mean? It's laughable, and it ultimately doesn't matter. You know, there are people who are like, oh, Hasan is fucking, he never listens. Like, he never listens to allies. He's like transphobic. He's racist, you know? Who cares? Just do your thing. Getting shit on and taking it is absolutely just a part of being online, and Gen Xers who are on Twitter straight up don't understand that. Yeah, people I think like, well, we've put a lot of time and effort. Here's a Pulitzer Prize winning picture of the black students who, amid disputes with the administration, took over Willard Straight Hall at Cornell in 1969. The sanitized and child-friendly version of history makes liberals into reactionaries. The very plain reality of the civil rights movement was that it was constantly accused of the exact same excesses of modern movements, but the modern trans right effort is significantly less militant, not more. Yeah, 100%. Is this it? Terrified swimming champion Riley gains his ambush by screaming trans activists and hit twice by a guy in a dress after saving women's sports speech at San Fran State University, and cops say there were no arrests. Daily Mail. Is this it? Is this what Anna is talking about? Also, what champion, bro? She's the champion of sucking ass, okay? Dude, it's so transparent. Like, all you need to fucking say is trans people suck and they're not real. And like, there is a built-in audience that will go, oh my God, you're so brave. You're so goated. Oh, King, please. You are a champion. You're a champion in my heart. These fucking participation trophy ass motherfuckers, dude. I swear to God. This is what she's freaking out about, not what you're looking at. This, why bonus hole is going viral on Twitter and what that means? I don't think so. Wait, what? Yes, it is Hasan Jesus Christ. Wait, what? I don't make things up, but my point is that this stuff turns people off. It's not really controversial. The bonus hole? What is happening here? What? No way. She's not saying pussy too. That's the reason why we're mad. There's a new hole? Is it pussy too? What's happening? Was Obama right? I just realized. Pussy 2 is trans pussy. That's it. Trans woman pussy is pussy 2. AKA the bonus hole, dude. What the fuck? Yo, Obama was right.
And pussy 2.
Protecting the transgender community is important. However, when you move out of or move far away from making sure that they are not denied housing, making sure that they're not denied healthcare, when you move into like these more fringe areas of like, I mean, there was a story out of the UK this week. Blows my mind. There was an LGBTQ group in the UK who suggested that instead of referring to vaginas as vaginas because it might be offensive to transgender men.
Yeah, this kind of stuff I hate so much. Again, it's always like marginal shit. Like, who cares? And then you look into the story and it's always, bro, this is literally the Gamergate neck-bearded weirdos that used to cultivate a movement around like shitting on the Young Turks and all manner of progressive politics online in the 2014, 2015, 2015 era of online politics. You read a one-sided article that looks at like some extremely fringe shit, and then you represent it as though this is like a community-backed movement. And then you get mad about it. It's like, instead of going, yeah, who cares about this? It's some random fringe shit. Shut the fuck up, please. And then move on and talk about the actual issue at hand, which is anti-trans legislation being passed at the state legislature level that is genuinely harmful, which I know Anna would probably consider as well. Like, getting annoyed at a singular trans person or getting annoyed at like one random fucking fringe group being like, we can't call it a vagina, we need to call it something else, is just so, it's silly. It's just unproductive. It's counterproductive if you are interested in defending trans rights. And look no further than the likes of Ben Shapiro, who regularly do turn this into legitimate discourse, right? I mean, look at it this way. Are we really going to act like trans people are not genuinely consistently under attack by the right-wing media apparatus when like Anheuser-Busch made one fucking beer can with Dylan Mulvaney's face on it, and now they still haven't shut the fuck up about it. Like the Republicans still haven't shut the fuck up about it. Like they saw Dylan, one of these sick perverts who almost always is a chaser, by the way, literally was like refreshing Dylan Mulvaney's like Instagram page to be like, oh my God, she posted a photo. And then they found out that Bud Light had done like one SpawnCon on her fucking profile, and they turned it into like a matter of national news. I don't want to talk about this shit. I don't think it's important. I think it's very fucking stupid. And I think that whenever there are certainly cringe trans people too. I mean, cringe is not unique to any kind of subsect of society, and trans people or activists can sometimes be very fucking cringe. They can be empathetic, but then simultaneously be incredibly fucking cringe. Like turning that into a matter of national news instead of just going, fuck that, who gives a shit, move on. Well, then you're participating, whether willingly or unwillingly, in just justifying a space for more transphobia to exist. So what happened? Let's see what happened with the situation that she's talking about.
Might be offensive to transgender men. You know, one of the potential replacements or substitutes could be bonus hole.
Wait, bonus hole? Wait, it is actually bonus hole. Why bonus hole is going viral on Twitter and what the term means. First of all, is it going viral on Twitter? Gives a fuck. What, you know what else goes viral on Twitter? The most unhinged Nazi propaganda. Who cares? After spending a little time on social media, you have to be wondering what is a bonus hole and why the term is all over your Twitter feed. Whose Twitter feed is this all over? It's not all over my Twitter feed. What the fuck? In 2020, Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust, in partnership with the LGBT Foundation, LGBTQ plus charitable organization, began suggesting the term bonus hole be used as a way to support trans men and non-binary people. According to their glossary, a bonus hole is an alternative word for the vagina, and recommend checking what? Whenever someone like Yahoo says it's going viral, it's absolutely not. Yeah, dude, if this shit was going viral, the Washington Post would be covering it, which, by the way, they probably will now. Bro, this is literally like trans girls calling their gawk the princess wand. Guys, find out about the new viral phenomena, the gawk, the girl cock. This community of memers have decided to call their girl penises gawks, and it's going viral. And what we need to do now is arrest every trans person. I just asked my trans friends who were chronically on Twitter, and none of them have heard of it. Lamau, I'm chronically online. I haven't heard of this either. According to their glossary, a bonus hole is an alternative for the word vagina, and recommend checking to see which words someone prefer to use. So, like, how is this news is the real question you got to ask yourself. Because here's what I mean. Do I think this is like something that is very important for the movement? You know? Fuck no, I don't. No one is going to be like, wow, you're not a real ally, Hasan, because you're not considering bonus hole. Like, this is some silly ass bullshit. If you are cis and heard of this, 99% chance you are falling down the Glinner rabbit hole. This is why I hate covering these kinds of idiotic fucking stories. Ultimately, I need to learn about bonus hole. And I don't want to ever learn about bonus hole. It's like, this isn't even Twitter shit. They're saying it's Twitter. It's worse than Twitter shit. You want to know why? They're faking and acting like it's Twitter shit when it's not even shit on Twitter. This is so stupid. On their website, Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust, using the correct language when you're talking about someone's gender identity is a simple and effective way to demonstrate support and recognition. It goes on to say that patients may seek care elsewhere if they feel hurt or distressed when a term is used that doesn't align with their gender identity. But bonus hole went viral today after conservatives like Leo Kearse and Oil London tweeted about it. Oh, that's why. Kearse is a right-wing UK-based comedian, and London is a British media personality who's most well known for writing a book about his experience detransitioning and the issue of supposed trans ideology. Basically, he's a TERF. I like that Yahoo News, boomer-ass fucking Yahoo News, is more progressive than the Associated Press, who's like, we can't use TERFs anymore. Sky News Australia covered this before you. UK charity group suggests bonus hole as a more inclusive term for vagina. 3 days ago, 9,000 views, bro. This shit didn't even hit like the transphobia sphere. That's the point, because it's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Now it's more relevant because Anna took the fucking bait on some random shit from some random fucking website that was like, oh, maybe we can call, you know, non-binary pussies bonus holes or something. And then all of a sudden now it's like an issue that everybody needs to fucking discuss. Why? The world is a massive place. There are always things that are happening that are idiotic. Things that are happening that are silly, things that are happening that are stupid. Oftentimes, you have to make that assessment. You have to look at it and go, how many people are actually using this? How many people are actually using this terminology? Are they using it just on their own, in their own circles? Or are they actually saying other people need to use this as well? And if it doesn't hit those metrics at all, if it doesn't hit any of those markers, then why the fuck is this existing in your mind? Like, you know, remember formative memories and don't fucking put bonus hole in your mind. It's so stupid. This reminds me of how trans memers started using transing as a joke and then conservatives now use it seriously. Yeah. Anna, Joe Rogan, and Bill Maher fall for every fucking chain email story, I swear. Yeah, it's just so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. It is such a dumb thing to be upset about. And the only reason why I believe you get this kind of shit on your feed, and the only reason why you would take this seriously, is if that kind of transphobic sentiment is starting to take root in your mind. I have disagreements with extremely online activists all the fucking time. That's part of the reason why there is a gigantic group of people on Twitter, regardless of what their political background is, that says stuff like, I hate Hasan, I want to go to his house and fucking murder Hasan. And then I'll look at their profile and they're like a neurodivergent minor trans person. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck happened? Like, what do you mean? You want to come to my... It's almost always Germa fans too. They fucking hate me for some reason. I don't know why. Even though I love Germa. And most of it is because they see shit clipped out of context and they fucking lose their mind over it, or it's like petty squabbles and minor disagreements that they hyper fixate on. Who gives a fuck? Ultimately, stay the course. If you truly do care about advancing, I don't know, if you truly do care about advancing trans causes or just ensuring that trans people are not getting absolutely eviscerated in out of public life, then don't talk about bonus hole, please. This is just bait created to make like some random fucking transphobic British person's Substack pop off. It's so dumb. Bonus hole. I love that. God, what's next? Honest question. What do you think the impact of comments like yours? Do you think this group you refer to, assuming they're real, are now going to stop? The reason why the right turns these anecdotes into national stories is to specifically demonize the entire movement. Assuming they are real, I just linked to it. The right turns these anecdotes to national stories because they know it will turn people off. My argument is a little bit more strategic and tactful to secure healthcare and housing for the trans community. That's my point. Well said, Anna. So I get having disagreements on optics with trans people on certain issues. And I get feeling frustrated that you can't even get your points across without people immediately, you know, saying you're transphobic. Here's the thing. Here's the reality. Ultimately, you can have like an optics conversation without jumping on the silliest things, the silliest stories possible that are exclusively turned into national news stories to demonize trans people. Everybody understands. Every fucking trans person understands, for the most part, that this shit is like stupid. Most trans people look at this and go, oh, here we go again. When you end up making it seem like this is emblematic of the entire trans movement, well, then you're basically helping out the transphobic people. It's kind of like, what's that lady? There's like that fucking psychotic trans woman, what was it, Yaniv or whatever, who was like a pedophile or something. I don't want to fuck this story up, but it always like, back in the day, there was like one trans person that like the right wingers loved pointing to be like, to point to be like, look, like this person is a pedophile. Like this is how every trans person is. That's just a criminal. Okay. That's like individually a criminal person. You don't ever do that with a white woman, or you don't ever do that with a white man. You don't ever do that with a cis man. You know what I mean? You don't ever go, well, you know, all all white men are engaging in tax evasion, or well, this white guy, this cishet white guy hit my car and then drove away, which means all white men do this all the time. Like, I can't even make a good analogy to this because it's virtually impossible to see the dominant in-group in the similar way that you would a marginalized community. To be clear, since apparently this has to be spelled out, no one, literally no one is saying that the word, they can't even write the article correct. They said the word bonus hole is mandatory for anyone to use, be they cis, trans, or non-binary. It's simply a suggestion presented for trans men and non-binary people, and presumably anyone who prefers it can use. Folks, this is not hard to grasp. Offering alternative terms to people who are seeking medical treatment is an easy way to be respectful of the gender dysphoria some trans men and non-binary folks might be experiencing. Whether or not you use bonus hole or not should be a personal choice. Sadly, some online just can't or won't understand nuance. And for the TERFs who see this as some sort of vernacular takeover, in the words of Taylor Swift, you need to calm down. All wraps back to Taylor, baby. Yeah, I don't know, man. Why the fuck is this a story? And we can't control what all activists are going to say and do. They're always going to exist, and there's always going to be some weird ones. As people with platforms, we have to be mindful of what our focus is and how that may impact people who are watching. You cannot be serious with this argument. Why are you giving into the rhetoric of we can't defend things that some people view as unpopular when you and Jenk used to rail against that thinking? You can just admit that you're laundering transphobia with you talking like this. She's a public news figure. Like, if a CNN anchor did this shit, we would be all over it. Yeah, a CNN anchor does have a significant amount more prominence than, I think, Anna Kasparian. I'm not Anna. I'm not Jenk. I can't speak on how they feel. But my assumption is that they've been getting shit on by the right for years and years and years and years. And the reason why they've been getting shit on by the right for years is not valid reasons. It's literally because they have been fighting against transphobia, anti-science rhetoric, fighting against racism, refusing to back away from police brutality. They've been doing that for a long time. And I think, pure speculation, I think that they get very frustrated, especially when they want to have like an optics conversation on how to present your best foot forward or whatever in activist circles. And I think they want everybody to just like shut up and agree with them. And I get that because I also feel that way sometimes when I'm just like, man, I've been getting fucking death threats since like 2014. I'm not a transphobic person. I'm not a racist person. Sometimes when I'm talking about optics or when I'm talking about activism or how to put your best foot forward and I'm speaking over marginalized communities, and I'm speaking against, it comes across like I'm speaking against marginalized communities. I'm doing that because I feel like I do know better on how to present your movement to a broader audience. This does not mean that I'm a transphobic person. This does not mean that I'm a racist person. The difference between me and this particular instance with like Anna, however, is that I'm not going to look to like a random, otherwise innocuous, silly fucking news story that is the type of news story that the right would absolutely latch on, to fucking create this massive issue and highlight it. Some of those people in the orgs don't relay the point well. I agree. Coming from you and how you present it makes it easily understandable. Yeah, except those people are trying to do the right thing, and also those people are overall irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? It's dumb to hyper focus on this shit. Does that make sense? Why I don't cover it. I think it's fucking stupid to cover something like bonus hole. It's kind of like, I'll give you an example that's even a broader example, right? Neopronouns. I don't fucking understand it, and I don't want to, and I don't care, and I'm never going to fucking talk about it. Obviously, there are plenty of fucking debate perverts who are regularly in here who are like, Hasan, give me your thoughts on neopronouns. Give me your thoughts on neopronouns. Give me your thoughts on fucking neopronouns. And it's like, nope, not going to do that. Don't care, not happening. And in a lot of instances, it comes across real fucking cringe, except for all the times you've talked about it. No, I haven't talked about it that much, and it's not really a thing that I talk about at all. It's pointless. It's pointless to talk about this shit. Do you get it? It's like getting mad at some fucking 14-year-old on Twitter who's using neopronouns now. You know what I mean? And the neopronouns are like dear or something. And now you're like, whoa, what's happening to society? It's like, dude, calm the fuck down. Calm down. It's not like a significant thing. There's no like, government mandate. Shut the fuck up. if you were to look at the neopronouns discourse, you know who uses neopronouns more than like actual trans people? Fucking right-wingers who are always like, my pronouns are suck my ass. It's literally fucking right-wingers that use neopronouns more than like the actual fucking trans people. Shut up. Shut up. Don't talk about it. It's just so stupid. Some deleted tweets from Anna the Juniper. Yeah, I showed some of this already. I don't give a shit how many viewers turn on me. I will never minimize any political violence of any kind. It's what losers do when they can't strategize and win an argument. You're fucking brain dead. Don't gaslight me to say that barricading someone in a fucking classroom for 3 fucking hours is non-violent. The speaker had nothing to do with the KKK. Disgusting. Barricading speakers is not violent. You are genuinely stupid if you cannot see how insane it is. You're comparing trans people to defending ourselves to groups like the KKK. The civil rights movement did not use the same strategies of the trans movement. They didn't barricade speakers they disagreed with in a classroom for 3 hours. They persuaded through non-violence of showing America their humanity. I think people feel like everyone has to immediately respect their positions, especially when they're talking about like optics or putting your best foot forward. I myself have done this many times. This, however, does not change my perspective. And I also don't cover that endlessly in the same vein as like, I don't talk about fucking neopronouns. There are always going to be certain things that you don't agree with in a broader movement. You have the capacity as an ally, even though I fucking hate that term, right? To look at something like that and go, oh yeah, this is fucking bullshit. Like, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I don't give a fuck. The hundreds of pieces of legislation that's passing at the state legislature level, or the temper tantrums that fucking right-wingers throw when like a trans person does like a 30-second spot for Bud Light, and it turns this into like a national trans panic, as though Bud Light is like personally transing you with a gun in your own home. All of that stuff is significantly more important. And I think if we're going to talk about trans issues, instead of talking about like ridiculous random people saying bonus hole, I choose to cover those things. And the reason why I choose to cover those things is because those things are actually important. You intentionally misunderstood what I said, you moron. Lol. No, I didn't. You said barricading people you disagree with is non-violent. If an alt-right group did that to a trans speaker, I'm sure you'd change your tune. You're dishonest, childish, and batshit crazy. Not sure if you noticed, but states currently using violence against trans people. Curious as to see why you seem to care about the grifter who terrorizes trans people than trans people who are being affected by this legislation and violence. You don't watch the show, so you have no idea what I talk about or how often I defend the trans community. I think the fringe shit and activists like you turn the country against people. You're just too stupid to see it. So here's the thing. Offering a blanket, oh, you barricaded this person, you're engaging in political violence in a situation like this, and I don't even know what this fucking situation is, but offering that blanket is basically centrism. The same kind of neck-bearded centrism that TYT has been attacked by for years and years and years, which is why it's so odd to see. It's why it's so fucking odd to see this coming from victims of those supposedly centrist commentators. Ultimately, the reason why Anna has responded that way is because she does cover state legislatures doing anti-trans legislation. I mean, here, let's look at it. This is the reason. This is the reason why Anna says, you don't know what I cover. Here's why. Republican censure first trans woman elected in Montana, Zoe Zephyr. Inspiring Nebraska state senator shows Democrats how to fight. Tennessee passes law that bans drag shows and gender-affirming care. Do you guys think that in any of these videos, TYT is taking an anti-trans perspective? No, of course not. The only issue where there is disagreement, I know this, is trans people in sports, okay? They feel as though, and I can't speak on their every single person that works there, but I do think that in certain circumstances, there is definitely that little bit of transphobia that's like baked into the conversation, where instead of going, I don't give a fuck if like a 14-year-old trans girl is actually participating in high school sports, which like normalizes her existence a lot better, and also on top of that like allows them to have a level of gender affirmation. And I think overall this like hyper focus on said 14-year-old in like different states and like literally crafting state legislation to dunk on that 14-year-old is actually fucking stupid. That's my perspective on it. And that it is completely crafted by psychopathic right-wingers and originally focus tested by like right-wing insane zealots that have lobbying groups and whatnot. Insane right-wing lobbying groups focus test what method of attack is the most successful against trans people. They find out that it's fairness in sports, just like affirmative action is fairness in getting into school. Like Americans want to believe in fairness, they want to believe in meritocracy, and that doesn't exist in the real world, but it doesn't matter, they still want to believe in it. So you do market research and figure out that if you slap on the fucking unfair sticker onto an issue, you can get a lot more people to come to your side. So they do that. And that's why TYT thinks like it's a irrelevant issue in the grand scheme of things, but that doesn't overall mean that they're like transphobic or that they are going to stop covering anti-trans legislatures. They are covering it, right? So for that reason, Anna thinks like, no, I am covering this shit, except I have a disagreement here with barricading people you disagree with being nonviolent. Yes, it does mean that they're transphobic. Yeah, it does, except every single person in the United States of America is transphobic to a certain degree. Do you want me to go back to the same conversation over and over again? Like, if you are a trans person, I don't know if you are or not, you probably know that already. It's the default position. America is transphobic. You know that is the case. There are plenty of trans people who were transphobic originally. They had internalized transphobia even. You know what I mean? Yeah, so you know that already. So because of that reason, you just have to like parse through just any kind of discourse, because there is like a sea of transphobic shit, and you have to basically pick your battles in that regard. It still doesn't matter. It still should not happen it should not come from like an otherwise progressive institution. I don't agree with that. A lot of these things that come out about trans people and what they're doing and what they care about is all in the same vein of like just creating just awful discourse around trans people. Just trying to fucking throw shit as best as possible. Be like, trans people are cringe. Trans people are violent. Trans people are pedophiles. Trans people are fucking trying to, groom your children. There is a wide spectrum of anti-trans sentiment, all of which plays the same role, which is when you think about trans people, if you ever consider like a trans person, you want to think that they're somehow bad, or you want to think that they're somehow toxic. Okay. You want others to think that they're somehow toxic. That's what transphobic people do. In many ways, this is why I say transphobia is a mental illness. By the way, trans people didn't barricade anyone. That transphobic fifth-place loser swimmer barricaded herself because she didn't want to deal with the protesters yelling at her. It's a total lie that anyone barricaded her but herself. Yeah. And in most circumstances, the story in and of itself is also different than the way people cover it. Different than the way transphobic people weaponize it, right? There's always some like some minutia that they utilize or that they weaponize against trans people. First-hand context, I work at SFSU. The whole Riley Gaines drama was a publicity stunt bullshit. They came back to campus for more drama but got ignored. They're not victims in the slightest. Red meat for chuds, and it's as inane as bonus hole. Exactly. Thank you. That is what I'm trying to say. And hyper-focusing on that and turning it into a larger issue like the trans people are doing political violence to their enemies is transphobic. You're creating more transphobic takes. You're giving more room for people to legitimize these otherwise really stupid stories. And I know TYT, and I know their coverage on issues like this in the past, and this is definitely different than the way that they've covered it. Ultimately, this discourse continues in the way that it is because you can just, you just think it's like disposable. You know what I mean? You just think that the issues and the people are somewhat disposable, so you don't care about like what kind of negative sentiment it's presenting. At a certain point, it moves beyond like, I'm trying to have a conversation about optics, about the optics of like activism, and moves into I'm dunking on trans activists on the timeline regularly, while also hyper focusing on some of the silliest points of contention that aren't even real issues at all. Because ultimately, if you care about practicality, if you care about praxis, if you care about like, ensuring that the trans community puts their best foot forward, like all these activists put their best foot forward, right? And it's not like a genuine disagreement with like, most trans issues, then you wouldn't be consistently talking about this, because lighting a fire under this over and over again as like right-wingers celebrate all this shit that you're saying, it makes the discourse way worse. It's just yet another rendition of like trans people are cringe and stupid and annoying, and that's why it's kind of valid for us to ensure that they are not playing in sports in any way, and that like maybe there's going to be some drag bans, but we can turn the other cheek towards that. Even when Anna and Cenk have consistently defended against those systemic forms of oppression, especially when it comes to legislation.
Sometimes I'm a little scared or I'm afraid of like talking to people who are outside of my race because I don't know if I'm going to unintentionally step in it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, and I hate that.
Right.
Like there's this like, because like if all of the message is toward me and people who, I'm Armenian, but still they call me white passing. So, just got to go with that, right? If people who look like me are constantly told, you are inherently racist. Okay. You are inherently a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's the start, and I had this debate with Cenk when it came to our rhetoric in regard to the other side, right? If the starting off point is you are trash and we think you're evil,
Yeah,
then
totally.
how does that? You're never going to move in a better direction. You're not going to move the country in a better direction. You're not going to improve race relations. You're going to make it worse, and that is what I see happening. I think
I think the way to think about this is all lib shit, dude. This is literally liberalism in action. Here's why. It stems from like people having honest disagreements or debates, or worse, Twitter spats, and what that does to systemic forms of oppression. It does nothing. Every single random fucking account on Twitter could say all white people are evil and deserve to suck shit, and that doesn't move the needle at all. Here, let me explain to you in a way that like I know Anna and everyone else at TYT has experienced through the Gamergate era. This discourse that Anna is engaging in right now is identical to the men are trash discourse. Gamergaters loved latching on to like all men are trash as like the absolute worst, most unimaginable thing that someone could fucking say. And at the time, TYT would look at that accurately and go, who gives a fuck? Who cares? It's just like some person saying some dumb shit. It doesn't mean anything. It's completely meaningless. The idea like all white people are inherently evil is not a serious thing that people believe. It's not. Some people might believe it, but who gives a fuck? And ultimately, white people still run society. You know what I mean? Who cares if some random fucking Twitter user's like, oh man, white people are inherently evil. Like it's not. You as a white person still have that privilege. You as a white person can still completely fucking, override all of that shit. It's just hurt people who are just trying to fucking, be as exaggerated as possible in the way that they cover shit. It's hyperbole. I mean, it's all in the same vein. I think what Anna is saying in all these clips that are popping on Twitter, it's all in the same vein of like hyper focusing on random gripes and turning it into like major points of contention, which is what right wingers do usually. You know what I mean? And they do it very successfully. So if you are a progressive commentator, as they are, and as they have been, and they've been victims of this already many, many times, like, I don't know why you eat the bait. They are not. You can say they're not, but like, I worked there. They were. You know what I mean? They have been shit on by the very same people who are now hyping up these sentiments. They've been shit on in the same exact way, as a matter of fact, that like TYT thinks all white people are evil. Like, it's like, no one fucking thinks that. It's like an idiotic fucking take, okay? They say that about me all the goddamn time too.
Do you think that you get to call yourself some sort of like principled leftist who's out to do the right thing? How can you call yourself the home of progressives when you are actively cutting deals with fascists about the rights of trans people and then spreading transphobic nonsense to an audience of like millions of people? It is deeply irresponsible, and fundamentally, it's pathetic. This is genuinely embarrassing. The degree to which this is irresponsible just knows no bounds, because there are so many people that are literally looking to people like Cenk for opinions, and he's literally just giving them an open invitation to be as transphobic as they want to be, because it's politically strategic.
They'll say that, but okay, you don't care about the politics? Let's just, for once in your life, think strategically about what that means.
This is really good. Yeah, this is exactly what is going on. I think she's 100% correct on that. Like the giving up on certain talking points specifically so you can be strategic is, I think, silly. And it's the exact same kind of triangulation that old TYT and TYT still to this day will shit on the Democratic Party for. It's just that they don't think it's worth fighting for. And that's the reason why they don't want to like educate people on why it's fucking silly and move on from it. Or they just legitimately disagree with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's great. That's a great point by Ben Carollo. Benny, you guys said her name is, right? She's trans, I think. She was a trans content creator at TYT. I don't know. I haven't fucking been involved in TYT for a very long time.
That means that you're going to continue pushing the Democratic Party to unequivocally support everything that the trans activists want, even if it's unpopular among the electorate. That means they're not getting reelected. That means they're going to lose to Republicans. Republican lawmakers who are passing draconian, disgusting legislation in various states right now as we speak against the transgender community.
Look at this. You're gonna push a Democratic Party to unequivocally support everything the trans activists want. Like, shut up. Literally, shut the fuck up. This is so embarrassing. Like, Anna Kasparian, and like, look, I'm gonna be real. This is my personal opinion, but whatever. I think Anna Kasparian is genuinely personally transphobic. I'm just gonna say it right now. She's like saying and doing all of the things. She's referring to every trans person as a trans rights activist. Referencing every trans person as a trans rights activist is just, on its face, literally transphobic. And it's one of the things that transphobes have been pushing for a long time, is just calling every trans person a trans rights activist. I mean, and the media more broadly does this as well. And this whole idea of like, you're gonna lose to Republicans, you're gonna lose to Republicans if you cater to these trans people, once again, is entirely debunked. Most people are fine with trans people, and when Republicans make their entire platform about attacking trans people, it actually does undermine their political success. We just live in a country that is very much not a democracy, that has all this gerrymandering and all these other things, and so Republicans still have like seats in a lot of places. I know, wild concept. But genuinely, if you look at their poll numbers in response to them focusing on just trans people existing, it's not working. It is genuinely not working for them. It is undermining the electoral success. But of course, you can't not take the opportunity to blame trans people for their own oppression, am I right? It's really great that Anna Kasparian is doing this.
And by the way, you schmucks, you're falling exactly into the right-wing trap. The Republicans, they tried everything. They tried anti-gay stuff, it didn't work. They tried trans bathrooms, you remember that? Mm-hmm. That didn't work. Kicking the transgender community out of the military, that didn't work. They drilled in until they finally found a little tiny nugget of like, hey, trans folks in like competitive sports seems a little bit much. And you don't engage them in that fight. They lose on everything else. But idiot activists, yes, I just called you an idiot. Activists go in there and go, no, I'm gonna fall right into that trap, and I'm gonna fight on the only losing ground we have, so we can elect more Republicans, so they can pass more anti-LGBT.
I mean, the counter to this is really simple. It's like civil rights movement, deeply and undesirably unpopular, saying that like this in and of itself at the time is not a worthy cause is exactly what Martin Luther King was criticizing when he talked about the white moderate. Yeah, Benny is on the money with this, I think, it seems.
But I think the real icing on the cake here is this tweet where Anna Kasparian has decided to unilaterally declare Jesse Singal to not be a transphobe, despite, and this is what's really wild.
What the fuck? Jesse Signal, which by the way, I didn't even fucking realize his name was Singal. I thought it was Signal this whole time. He's a transphobic person. That's all he does. All he does is fucking complain about trans people. He's got trans on the mind non-fucking stop.
I'm subscribed to Blocked and Reported. I have listened to endless podcast episodes from Blocked and Reported. I haven't seen anything from Jesse Singal that communicates to me that he is a transphobe, that he is a bad person.
I'm not gonna lie, that in and of itself is significantly worse than any of the other tweets that you guys showed me today. You could have just shown me that, and I would have. That is the worst thing I've seen so far. It's the whole like, it's the whole show me why J.K. Rowling is transphobic narrative. You know what I mean? You're right to treat transphobia like a disease. No, it's 100% mental illness. It really is. Society's transphobic. You wake up, you grow up. You develop object permanence, and you also develop certain sets of standards. Transphobia is one of those standards. I've had this conversation a million times over. So there is like a level of transphobia that everyone has in the beginning. But then there's two avenues that you can go down. You either look at that situation. That's the reason why most people have apathy towards trans people, right? The overwhelming majority. They just like don't give a shit. They think trans people are kind of weird, but they don't think about it that much. So there's two different ways when you see a trans person in the real world, or when you are met with trans issues, right, that get blasted in front of your face, you can go either way. You either go down the route of like not being transphobic and educating yourself about culturally speaking, what role gender is played in society and how different that is from our current understanding of it. You look at biology and you become not transphobic. I myself have gone through a similar journey. Or you go in the other direction. And the other direction is really scary because a lot of people do take that path and they just become incredibly transphobic, like further and further and further. Like every single day, every new day, there's another thing that you look at that makes your fucking that melts your mind a little bit further about how like trans people are a certain way. It's really sad. It's really sad until you ultimately arrive at what I like to call the highest stage of transphobia as a mental illness, and that is, of course, transvestigations. It's like a closed circuit at that point. You've arrived at the reality that gender is culturally defined. Gender is a social construct, but because you can't cope with that, because you can't recognize that reality, you start thinking everyone is technically trans. You know, everyone's trans. Like, start yelling at cis people who have like given birth, and you go, "Oh my God, you know, this person is secretly trans." Matt Walsh is one of those people. And if you don't want to constantly fucking obsess over, I don't know, whatever some Hollywood celebrities' children are wearing, or children's genitals on a regular basis, then if you don't want to go down that pipeline, learn that trans people are among us. It's totally normal, and perhaps we shouldn't shut off medical access to gender-affirming care that many cis people use, myself included, and Kasparian included, and Joe Rogan certainly has utilized like all matter of different gender-affirming care. As a person who got a hair transplant in the beginning, as a person who has literally taken HRT, hormone replacement therapy, for his entire life. He has been an advocate for TRT for as long as I've known him. He is the reason why I will most likely at a certain point take TRT once I hit like 35, 36.